The glass wall of his penthouse office was cold against Kito's forehead. 28 floors below, Nairobi was a river of flowing headlights and pulsating neon, a city that never slept, a city he had conquered. He clutched a small, worn leather pouch, its gritty contents a stark contrast to the polished chrome and glass surrounding him. The skyscraper was his, a monument to his will. Yet, in the reflection staring back, he saw not a tech titan, but the ghost of a boy from the red dust Shamba, a boy whose world had been measured in sunrises and the smell of rain on dry earth. Chapter 1: The Wisdom of the Earth. The sun, a fierce, benevolent god, baked the red earth of the Shamba. To 12-year-old Kito, this small plot of land was his entire universe. He followed behind his father, Boba, his small hands mimicking the man's practiced movements as they tended to the maize. "See this one, Kito?" Boba said, his voice a low rumble as he cradled a wilting seedling. "It is not lazy. It is thirsty. The land does not give you what you want, my son. It gives you what you deserve. You must listen to it. Understand its thirst, its strengths. This is the oldest wisdom." Kito listened, but his eyes often strayed to the broken transistor radio he kept hidden in their mud brick hut. While Boba spoke of the soil, Kito's mind buzzed with the mystery of the tiny components inside the radio, a magic that could pull voices from the air. He was a child of two worlds, his feet planted firmly in the ancestral earth, his imagination soaring in the invisible currents of technology. Then, the rains did not come. The benevolent sun became a tyrant. The lush green of the Shamba faded to a brittle yellow, then cracked into a mosaic of despair. The village well yielded only mud. The air grew thick with the silence of absent birds and the low, desperate moans of dying livestock. The tragedy was as simple as it was brutal. Boba, his body weakened by hunger and effort, was digging, trying to reach a deeper, mythical vein of water. He collapsed, the dry earth staining his clothes. Kito, using all his strength, could not lift him. He watched the life fade from his father's eyes under the same relentless sun that had once nurtured them. The world, in its thirst, had taken its price. Orphaned and alone, with nothing but the clothes on his back, Kito made his decision. On the morning he left, he knelt on the cracked earth of his family's Shamba, scooped a handful of the red soil into the leather pouch Boba had always carried, and tied it securely. He turned his back on the ghost of his past and set his face towards the rumor of a city called Nairobi. Chapter 2: The Concrete Crucible. Nairobi was a shock to every sense. The warm, earthy scent of home was replaced by the acrid smells of diesel, refuse, and dense humanity. The vast, star-filled skies were blotted out by a canopy of tangled wires and the harsh glow of advertising signs. The rhythmic sounds of the countryside were drowned beneath a cacophony of blaring matatas, shouting hawkers, and the relentless, grinding energy of millions fighting to survive. Kito found himself in Kibra, a sprawling labyrinth of corrugated iron and desperation. He was a small boat on a turbulent ocean. He slept on cardboard, washed windscreens for a few shillings, and learned the hard geometry of alleyways to avoid gangs. The patch of soil was his secret shame and his only comfort. At night, curled in the cold, he would press it to his chest, the grit a tangible reminder of a world where he had once belonged. His break came in the form of a janitorial job at a gleaming tech hub in Westlands. As he mopped floors and emptied bins, he watched the young men and women with their sleek laptops, their language a foreign poetry of code, algorithms, and disruption. Their world was built on logic, not the fickle mercy of the rain. One sweltering evening, waiting in a line that snaked for blocks around a communal water point, Kito watched a woman argue over the price of a jerrycan of murky water. The memory of his father's words, "Understand its thirst," echoed in his mind, but this time, they collided with the world he now inhabited. Thirst. It wasn't just the lands anymore. It was the cities. The idea came to him not as a lightning bolt, but as a slow, dawning certainty. What if people could find clean, affordable water with a simple text? No more wasted journeys. No more exploitation. He began his work at night, on a discarded laptop he'd repaired himself. He named his crude SMS-based system Maji Direct. For months, it was his secret rebellion. Then, one day, a visiting investor from South Africa saw him demonstrating the system for a friend. The man, named Johan, wasn't just impressed by the code, he was captivated by the fire in Kito's eyes and the powerful story behind the simple idea. "The world invests in ideas, young man," Johan said, handing him a business card. "But I invest in spirit. Let's talk." Chapter 3, The Gilded Cage. The ascent was meteoric. Maji Direct evolved into an app, then a company, Ujuzi Solutions. Kito's innate understanding of a market everyone else ignored, the informal, cash-based, mobile-first economy, made him a visionary. He moved from Kibera to a high-rise apartment, his worn-out sneakers replaced by handcrafted leather shoes. He learned to navigate boardrooms, his accent softening, his gestures becoming more measured. The boy from the Shamba was being meticulously buried under the persona of the CEO. The patch of soil sat on his vast, empty desk, a lonely, dusty artifact in a world of sterile perfection. Success, he discovered, was just another kind of drought. The corporate rivalries were a psychological warfare his father could never have conceived. When a larger tech conglomerate, threatened by his growth, launched a smear campaign accusing Ujuzi of data mining and exploitation, Kito's war tittered. Headlines screamed. Investors fled. The board demanded answers. Standing in his silent, multi-million shilling office, surrounded by the symbols of his success, Kito had never felt more hollow. He had built his skyscraper, but he was trapped at the top, isolated and parched. He had solved the city's thirst, but his own spirit was dying of it. Chapter 4, The Harvest. The silence in Kito's Mercedes-Benz was a stark contrast to the roaring anxiety in his mind. He was driving away from Nairobi, from the glass and steel fortress that housed his crumbling empire. The boardroom's recriminations still echoed in his ears: shareholder value, data privacy scandal, hostile takeover. They were fighting over the carcass of his dream, and he had been the one holding the knife. He wasn't sure what he expected to find in the village. Perhaps a shrine to his own failure, a place to finally lay the ghost of the boy he had been to rest. But as the tarmac gave way to the familiar, rotted dirt road, something unexpected happened. The tight knot in his chest, clenched for years, began to loosen. The land was not the cracked, desperate expanse of his memory. The rains had been kind. The air was thick with the scent of blooming acacia and wet earth. Children, their laughter a sound he'd forgotten, chased a makeshift ball. He saw a young man guiding a plow, his posture so like Boba's it made Kito's breath catch. Life had continued. It had flourished. His dramatic fall was of no consequence here. The humility of that realization was a bomb. He parked at the edge of what was once his family's Shamba. He stepped out, the rich, loamy soil soft beneath his polished shoes. He walked to the spot where his father had fallen, a place that had been seared into his mind as a monument to loss. Now, it was just earth, nurturing a robust cassava plant. He knelt, a CEO in a $5,000 suit kneeling in the dirt. He picked up a handful of soil, letting it run through his fingers. It was cool and alive, teeming with a universe he had once understood. His father's voice, a whisper on the wind, finally found its home in his soul. The land gives you what you deserve. He had spent years interpreting what you deserve as a reward for hard work. You work the land, it feeds you. You build a company, it makes you rich. But now, he saw the profound simplicity he had missed. The land didn't just give food, it gave purpose. It gave community. It demanded that you nurture it so it could nurture others. His success in Nairobi had been a solitary harvest. He had hoarded the yield, building higher walls around his personal field while ignoring the communal lands drying up around him. The scandal, the smear campaign, they weren't the problem. They were the symptom. The symptom of a venture that had lost its soul, that had stopped listening to the thirst of the people it was meant to serve. A resolve, solid and calm, settled within him. It was not the frantic energy of a startup founder, but the deep, patient certainty of a farmer who knows the season has turned. The return, a new pitch. The boardroom in Nairobi was still tense, but Kito entered it with a new aura. The desperation was gone from his eyes, replaced by a quiet light. "I have listened to your concerns," he began, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter. "You speak of saving the company. I am here to talk about fulfilling its promise." He switched on the projector. Instead of complex financial graphs, a single, powerful image filled the screen, a photo of his father's vibrant Shamba, taken just days before. This is where Ujuzi was born. Not in this room, but here. In the soil. Our first product, Maji Direct, wasn't about data points, it was about a woman who needed clean water for her children. We solved her thirst, but we forgot her hunger. We forgot her need for a market for her crops, for knowledge to make her land more fertile, for a safety net when the rains failed again. He then unveiled his plan, not on a spreadsheet, but as a story. We are not going on the defensive. We are going back to the source. We will launch Shamba 2.0. We will use our platform not just to tell people where to find water, but to help them create abundance. He detailed the new vision. 1. Digital marketplace, a system for farmers to list their yield and sell directly to vendors in major cities, cutting out the parasitic middlemen who siphon their profits. 2. Ujuzi AgriScan, a simple, SMS-based tool where farmers could get soil analysis and personalized advice on crops and natural fertilizers. 3. Community Resilience Fund, a microinsurance product, powered by a small percentage of Ujuzi's profits, that would pay out automatically when satellite data confirmed a drought in a subscribed farmer's region. We will pilot it all in my village, Kito declared. We will prove that our technology's greatest value isn't in extracting data, but in cultivating dignity. Our valuation will not be measured in billions of shillings, but in the number of Shamba we helped drive. The room was silent, then a single investor, an older man who had stayed silent throughout the crisis, began to clap. Slowly, others joined. They weren't just applauding a business plan, they were bearing witness to a leader who had finally found his true north. The true groundbreaking. Months later, Kito stood not on a podium of marble, but on the packed earth of his ancestral home. The solar-powered community hub, a beautiful, airy structure built from local materials, hummed with life. He watched as old Mama Akin, who had lost her husband to the same drought that took his father, used a tablet to finalize the sale of her kale harvest to a supermarket in Nakuru. He saw a group of young people clustered around a terminal, learning to code, their aspirations now tethered to their homeland. A young boy, no older than he had been when he left, approached him, clutching a phone. Mzee Kito, the boy said, his eyes wide with admiration, the app says my father's soil needs more nitrogen. What is the best way? Kito smiled, the title Mzee, a term of respect for an elder, feeling not like a burden, but an honor. He knelt, bringing himself to the boy's eye level, and began to explain about legume rotation, his words weaving his father's ancient wisdom with the new tools he had built. He reached into his pocket and felt the leather pouch. He didn't need to open it anymore. Its purpose had been served. It had been the compass that led him home, not to a place, but to a purpose. He had not abandoned his skyscraper, he had simply learned that the strongest foundations are not made of concrete and steel, but of community, legacy, and the sacred, life-giving soil. The harvest was no longer just his, it was for everyone, and in that, he had finally, truly, become rich.